Hey there, fourth grade. This is Mr. Campbell. Today we are going to be working on lesson 2.1, which is finding sums and differences with mental math. Now, what I need for you to do is open up your math book, get to page 37 right now, because this is where we're going to be spending the majority of our time on these next two pages in here. Now, today is all about getting you to see patterns in addition and subtraction. The patterns can help us out when we're using large numbers to add or subtract. And if we see these types of patterns, we can do those quickly without even needing to take out our notebook or a whiteboard to write things down. Those are still really good strategies to do as well. But today we're going to take a look at, well, what are some things that we can also do in addition to those? So would you go ahead and this is just to kind of get us there. If you haven't found page 37, we're actually going to flip over to page 38, and I've wrote it right here in the middle for you. If you are not on page 38, go ahead, pause the video right now and get to that spot and then push play. Now, as we work through things together today, I need you to be on the page with me. I need you to have your headphones on, and I need you to be paying attention. You also will need a pencil as we work through these problems today, because this is how you practice with me. When we do our flipped math, it's so important for you to make sure that you're actually following along. If there's something you don't understand, you can always rewind your video, go back and re-watch part of it to see if it helps you understand what we're talking about. After that, you'll get a chance to do some guided practice on your own and then go ahead and check in with your teacher to see where you're at, if there's anything that they can also help you with. The whole idea of this is for you to be able to get the information, try it out, and then meet with a teacher in person. So this part is so important as you follow along. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in. It says, how can you use mental math to solve problems? It says, Katie's dad washes windows at one of the tallest buildings in Miami, the Four Seasons Hotel. He worked Saturdays in October and earned more money than in September. How much did he earn in the 2 months combined? Well, when we see the words combined, that's going to tell us, oh, this is going to be an addition problem. So down here, they've already shown us what those are going to be. It looks like 1 month he made $1,985, and then in the next month he made $2,595. All right, so these are two pretty large numbers. I see, we've got some fives in here, but it goes all the way up to the thousands place. How on earth am I going to go ahead and start to work on these problems? Well, these first three boxes down here are going to give us some ideas of how to use addition to solve this problem. So box B says make a 10. We're going to break apart our 1,985 to get a number that makes a 10, 100, or 1,000 when added to 2,595. Then we can use the associative property of addition to change the grouping around. So what does that mean exactly? Well, if I take a look here, well, I can see that this is really close to 3,000. So how much would I need to get up to 3,000? Well, I'd need to add another 5 here, which would turn this into, I need to carry a 1 here, so that turns into a 10, which makes this into a 6. So I would need 405 to make this into 3,000. So what they did is they went to their 1,985 and broke off. They took off that 405, and then what was left was 1,580. All right, our 2,595 stayed the same, but the associative property tells us we can add these in whatever order we want as long as we ultimately add them all together. So by doing this, we can say these parentheses tell us what to do first. Let's just move those over, right? Let's focus here. We just said if we have 405 and we add it to our 2,595, hey, it's a nice easy 3,000. Then what do I have left? Well, I've got 1,580. So now I need to add those two together. And when I do that, I can start in my ones place and say, well, 0 plus 0 is 0. 8 plus 0 is 8. 5 plus 0 is 5, and 1 plus 3 is 4, so 4,580. This is why it helps us out. When we get all these zeros, we know anything over here added to zeros is going to just be that other number. So it creates an easier way for us to kind of look at that. Let's take a look at another one. It says, break one addend apart and add on. All right. So we can break one add end apart and then just keep adding on to it. So here we're going to start with 1,985, our first number. And up here, if I add all these together, it's going to equal 2,595. But here's the thing. They want us to get to some easy numbers before we keep going. So if I start with 1,985, if I just add 5 more, then I just get a 0 there, which is easier for me to work with. All right. So I added 5 and got to 1,990. Well, I still need to add some more, right? So I can see, I could turn this into a 2,000 by just adding 10 more. So that's why we just jumped to a 10. All right, so now we're at 2,000. Well, I had 90 though, and this is 80, and then I need 10 more for 90. So that's why my next jump is 80, because these combined is going to be that 90, which was in our original number. Okay, so now I've got 2,080 because I just put an 8 in the tens place. Next, I've got a 5 in my hundreds place. I'm going to add 500, so now I have 2,580. And then I have a 2 in my thousands place, so it's 2,000 plus 2,000 is 4,000. All right? You could also start the other way around, which is what they're showing you down here. It's the same one, but the commutative property tells me I can start with either one. And so when I do that, I start with 2,595. And I'm just adding my 1,985 up here. All right. So I'm doing these little jumps to make easy numbers for myself as I keep adding on. But that's one way that I can do that, is just keep adding to it in small chunks that I can keep track of making sure. The last one is using compensation. So I could add 15 to my 1,985, and then I could take away that same 15 from over here to compensate. What that means is when I take away part of here, I'm just moving it over, because then it creates a nice easy number. I see here I'm 15 away from going up to an easy thousands number. So if I just take those 15 first, I just remove it from here and move it over, boom, then I've got 2,000. And I take away those 15, I'm left with 80. 2,000 plus 2,580 is 4,580. All right, I'm going to pause for just a second, okay? You might feel like, hey, we're going really fast. This is a lot of information. I'm a little bit confused, and that's okay. You are welcome to go back and review, go back and take a look at these a little closer. But the whole idea of this first page is just telling us we want to try to get easy numbers to work with. We want to have those zeros to work with when we're adding other numbers together. Okay. And once we start practicing, some of these start to make a little bit more sense and you might like them. But again, it's just in a way for us to find, hey, what are some patterns that we can get to as we are working on these? All right. Well, there's a couple more examples. So let's go ahead and turn to page 39 and check out some more examples. So here we are on page 39. So if you're not there, turn with me to page 39. And we're going to look at some subtraction mental math now. Okay, so this time we want to say, well, what if we wanted to subtract how much he made in that second month minus that first month to find out how much more he made? All right, well, one way is for us to count up. All right, and in this one, when we count up, we put the larger number over here and we put our smaller number over here. All right, so my 1,985 is over here because we usually put our smaller numbers to the left on our number lines and our larger numbers are out to the right. Well, if I start here with the smaller one, I want to say, well, what's the difference between these two? The difference just means how long does it take to get from here all the way over to here, okay? We can go either way, which is what we'll try in just a minute. But if I start here and go, okay, well, I want to, again, just like on the other page, easy numbers. So I'm going to start with just adding 5 to get to 1,990. Well, now I want to try to get up to something easy. So I see if I add 10 more, this will turn into 2,000. So 10 more and boom, I've got 2,000. Where do I want to end? 595. So I'm going to start with my 2,000, add that 595, and now I'm here. That's not just the answer, though. The answer is what is together up here. 5 plus 10 plus 595. All right, and that's what they show us down here. When I'm starting at my lower number and counting up, I want to figure out what did I need up on the top. 5 plus 10 is 15. 15 plus 595 is 610. All right. The other way that I could do this is counting down. And for this one, I'm going to start with my larger number. So in this case, my larger number is right here, 2,595. And so for this one, I'm just going to say, okay, well, I want to subtract my 1,985. That's what I want to subtract. So I'm going to start with my 85. So if I start here and subtract 85, it takes me down to 2,510. Now I'm going to say, okay, well, I see I've got a 5 here. So if I subtract 500, boom, it takes me down to 2,010. All right. Well, I still need to get to the 9. I used my 5. I have 400 more. So that's why I'm going to subtract that next. And that takes me to 1,610. And then I can go, okay, so I did my 85. I did my 900. Now I need to subtract my 1,000. And when I do 1,610 minus that 1,000, it leaves me with 610. Okay, so my answer is actually where I end up here. On this side, I had to add all of those together. On this side, it's just where I end up is my answer. Okay, now the last one is using compensation. So for this one, we're going to be adding the same amount to both numbers in a subtraction problem that it doesn't change the difference. Okay, if I were to have a number line, and I'm going to just use this really, really quickly, okay? So if I have my number line, right? And if I wanted to figure out what is 10 minus 3, okay? So if I had my 3 is over here and my 10 is over here, right? If I did this, all right, this is the number that I have between them. Well, if I actually moved these, if I was like, okay, well, the distance from here to here, if I move them back one, it's the same amount of distance because I just moved both of them one spot over, which is the same idea when we're using compensation. So for this, I'm going to say, let me get to some easier numbers to work with. And in this case, the number I start with isn't as important as what I'm taking away. All right. So when I look at my number of what I'm taking away, how do I make this into an easy number? Well, by adding 15. Because if I add 1,985 with 15 more, it comes up to a quick 2,000. All right. But if I do that on this side, I have to do that over here as well, which is why it becomes 2,610. The distance just moved 15 bigger, but the distance between them didn't change. So the numbers moved, but the distance still stays the same because we did the same thing on both sides. Okay. So now I can say, well, what's 2,610 minus 2,000? My answer is 610. Okay. Now, again, I totally understand when we get overwhelmed and we're just like, this seems like so much. I get it. But let's go ahead and take a breath. Okay. Once we get going, you're going to see how some ways we can use these in real life problems. And what we really need to do is we have to problem solve for ourselves and say, which one of these strategies actually helps me to make this problem something easier. All right. That's what we're going to do as we come down to numbers 2, 3, and 4. So go ahead and take a look just below this at numbers 2, 3, and 4 right down here. So down here for numbers 2, 3, and 4, we're going to just look at these together and we're going to say what mental math strategy would work best for this situation. So starting with number 2, I've got 6,794 and I'm going to minus 999. Well, this is very similar to that last one we just did of compensation because I see that I could turn this 999 into a 1,000 just by plus one more, right? It's one away, and then I would easily be able to do that. Well, if I do the same thing, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to add 1 on this side as well. Compensation tells me whatever I do, I have to do it to both of them. Okay? So if I add that, all right, now I've got 1,000. And what am I subtracting? Well, what's 4 plus 1 is 5. And then all my other numbers stay the same. This is how compensation can help me. So now what I have is 6,795 minus 1,000. That's so much easier for me to do than worrying about 999. Because when I have these 3 zeros here, that tells me these numbers will stay the same. So my 7, 9, and 5 are all going to stay the same. I just need to figure out what's in my 1,000. 6 minus 1, and that's 5. So 5,795. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit for us just to try to help us out a little bit more. Sorry. There we go, 5th grade. I think that's a little, or 4th grade. I think it's a little better. All right. So that helps me out to just make some easier numbers for myself. Number 3, I've got 4,505 plus 3,515. Well, if I go back to the other page, right, and take a look at these different ones, well, which one of these would really actually help me out? Well, maybe adding on, right? If I break one add end apart and then just keep adding on, maybe that would help me out. Maybe coming over here and saying, well, I can make some 10s, right? I can make some easy numbers of 10 would be another good strategy. That's the one I'm going to choose only because I see when I look here, I've got 15 plus 5. That makes a 10 for me right away of 20, right? Because 15 plus 5 is 20. So I'm going to start there. Then I see, I've got 5 and 5. Well, 5 and 5 is 10. So my 0 will stay here, and I'm going to regroup that 1. 3 plus 1 is 4, right? So 4 plus 4 more is 8. So my answer is 8,020. If I just look for these patterns of 5s and 10s, it can really, really help me out. All right. Now, the last one, number 4. I've got 9,100 plus 2,130 plus 900. I'm adding 3 very large add-ins together. And I've got to say, well, what makes the most sense for me to be able to do this? Because I got to figure out, like, what's going to happen. Well, the associative property will help me here. And here's how. I see that I've got a 100, and I see that I've got a 900. 900 plus 100 is 1,000. And then if I take that 1,000 and add it to 9,000, now I've got 10,000. And now if I add that with what I've got left, which is my 2,130, it becomes a much easier problem. I've got a 0 in the thousands, a 0 in the hundreds, a 0 in the tens, a 0 in the ones, which means all of those numbers are just going to fill in those place values. 0, 3, 1, 2. I've got a 1 in my 10,000 and there's nothing here, so that means that the 1 just joins it. So my final answer is 12,130. Okay? Now, I've been practicing this for a long time. I'm not going to pretend to you like all of this clicked for me right away. It takes a lot of practice to start to see how these patterns can really fit together in order to make our lives easier. That doesn't mean you should go, well, I'm never going to know it, or I just don't care. We want you to just practice. We just want you to see. Like when I take a look at number 5, I go, hey, I'm pretty sure that our compensation could probably help me out here, right? Can I get this up to a 900 somehow? Oh, yeah. I could add a 3 and a 7, right? 73, and then add that over here. Now I can do that subtraction a lot easier. I see I've got 5s here, so making 10s can make it an easier problem for me. All right? What I want you to do for numbers 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, I just want you to do your best. Okay? I want you to try to find some patterns. I want you to work through these problems. Do the best that you can to try to use that mental math, but you're also welcome to try out just using your pencil and paper as well, just to practice these different types of problems. All right. You do have 6 problems I want you to work on right now. I'm going to say goodbye in just a moment and you'll turn off your video. Now, what I do need for you to do, I need you to make sure you try these 6 problems and check in with your teacher. All right. They're going to be there to try to help you out, to see where you're at, if you need a little bit more reteaching, those types of things. All right. Well, thanks so much for working so hard with me today, 4th grade. You guys did an awesome job. I can't wait to see how this continues to develop for you. And I will see you again for our next lesson, which will be 2.2. And for today, have a great rest of the day, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.